Rediscover Your Stash Pop that is happening this month. The focus for this month is the color orange. So perfect for fall and, even your summer photos if you're still working on summer photos, but definitely orange is a challenging color for some people. I know it's not always one of those colors that people pick as their favorites, and so sometimes it's nice to have that little extra push and, kind of challenge yourself to use some of those colors. So I am going super monochromatic and just, pulling out all the orangey stuff that I can. I love fall. I love Halloween. And so I definitely jumped right in and grabbed my Halloween and fall stash and decided that that's what I was doing. But you wouldn't have to be quite as cliche as me if you didn't want to. I think orange is a great color for birthday parties when you're doing like summery things, because it can be really bright and fun and kind of, look like flowers and sunsets and that kind of stuff. So you could definitely pull out your oranges to work with those types of themes as well. Anything boyish works really great for the color orange. But yeah, I'm doing Halloween because that is my favorite. So I'm starting with some mixed media. I want to get that drying before I go ahead and, start working on other things. And I want to do a bunch of mixed media. So I pulled out the watercolors, I pulled out some acrylics, I have a stencil. I just kind of wanted to do some fun layers, play around with the different shades and tints of orange. I think that's one thing. It's kind of like reds for me. Orange can kind of read cool or warm, and sometimes it's hard to get an exact match to a shade. So I'm very much one of those people who throws them all in there so they look intentional. And, I just try to get all the variations, and then every one of them kind of sits properly and matches the others because they're in there somewhere. So I started with my watercolors. That I think is key when you're doing any kind of layering. If you want that foundation to have that beautiful watercolor effect, you gotta do that first. The watercolors won't always sit on top of acrylics or other mediums that you might be using. And so you can definitely use that to your advantage if you want to play around with some resist techniques. But for this, where I'm layering things up, I started with my watercolors. I had some matte watercolors and then also some shimmery ones. And I just played around with it. I used the smushing technique, just a scrunched up piece of packaging that I pounced all over and kind of, dotted all these different variants of the colors, different shades and tints of it. It gives a lot of depth and kind of makes orange a really fun color to play with. So that's what I started with. Let that dry. The watercolor dries super quick when you do stuff like this. I didn't put any gesso or anything on my background paper. And this paper is just Colorblock regular white cardstock paper from Walmart. So it's not even extra thick, cardstock that is meant for mixed media. This is just a cardstock that I have found that is very economical to buy, and seems to take this kind of mixed media pretty well. You can see it's a little bit bowed, but by the time I get all of my layers and papers and embellishments on top, it doesn't bend or curl up really at all. So that is what I'm doing. If you think that your paper isn't going to be able to hold all of this mixed media, please go ahead and use gesso or something like that if you want to give yourself a nice base. But I started with my watercolors, got all that fun shimmer, lots of depth in there. And then I pulled out, oh, hello, Arlo. And then I pulled out a stencil. That's a Nicole Wright stencil from Wild Whisper. And I sprayed a little bit of that kind of bright neon orange mist. It's actually acrylic, but it's watered down quite a bit. So it comes out as more of a fine mist. And then I added in some different shades of orange in like just a thick regular consistency acrylic paint, and even a little bit of gold, because I think gold kind of reads as that, yellowy orange. And so it works really well with oranges if you want to kind of mix it in as a lighter shade of orange. You definitely can do that, but it also gave me, again, some more shimmer and kind of contrast and a bit of a metallic feel to that background. And truth be told, I know right away, based off of the sketch that I'm working with, I'll explain that in 1 second, but I know based on that sketch and how much real estate my paper layers are going to take up, I knew that I was probably going to be covering up 95% of the mixed media I just did. But I really enjoy doing it. It's really fun and therapeutic, and I love showing you guys what I do. It's probably one of my top questions or comments that I get is people saying that they're always afraid to get messy and just kind of jump in and go for it and play in case they make a mistake or screw it up. I promise you, you cannot. You saw exactly what I did there. Super messy. I smushed it around. There wasn't really a plan other than the strategy for what mediums to use first. That was it. Other than that, you let the paint kind of dictate what's going to happen. And so you smush it around, you have some fun, and what I like is just those little pops that kind of peek out from behind your paper layers. And I think those just look really fun. They add that interest to the layout. Sometimes you see more of it than other times, but the process for me is just kind of really fun, and it's nice to experiment and practice and that kind of thing. So yes, it is pretty much all covered up, as you can see there, but those little pops that you see around the edges make it worth it for me, and just being able to kind of play and show you guys what I'm doing makes it worth it for me. So I just wanted to give you that as a side note. I am all for just jumping in and doing it. So let me explain the sketch. I am using today's sketch, so day 23 of 30 days of sketches. It's series 16, and all of the sketches in this series are 2-page layouts. So you don't have to do 2 pages. You can take parts of the sketch and kind of combine it all into 1 page if you wanted, whatever size that might be, or a pocket page layout, whatever you want to do. But they are all 2-page layouts, and so I've been doing 2 pages to kind of follow the sketches, and that's great for me. I always like that little kick in the butt to get extra pictures onto a layout and get some 2-page layouts done. So I love that. But definitely don't feel like you have to do 2 pages, because that's the sketch that you see. The sketch is just simply the inspiration that gets that creative juice kind of flowing, and, hopefully has enough ideas in it that spark something in you to go ahead and create your own layout. So you take from it what you want to, and don't think that you have to do 2 pages just because the sketches are 2 pages. But here you can see this one's 2 pages. This was created by Dana Terry, and I really love, I adjusted my camera there. Occasionally you can see it, but my camera slowly starts to descend. It's on like a gooseneck with a big ring, and it just kind of slowly starts to tilt, and then I have to pull it back up so that you can see enough of my desk. But occasionally you see me sort of drifting off the edge of my desk. It's actually because my camera is starting to fall. Tangent on that one, sorry about that, but I really like Dana's sketch because it could definitely be 2 completely separate layouts if you wanted it to be, and you could just make 2 kind of complementary pages instead of a 2-page layout. Those are 2 different things. To make it a 2-page layout, you kind of want to have something that bridges the 2 pages together. To make it a complementary layout, you could have the same products, the same colors, things that are common between the two pages, but they don't necessarily go all together as one layout. So this particular sketch works really great for that. And I kind of did it as 2 pages, but it would be as simple as me just boxing in or adding a line going down the border of both pages on the insides, and suddenly my layout here would go from a 2-page layout to complementary layouts. Hopefully that makes sense when you see me starting to do my sketchy lines, but I choose to do a line just on the 3 outside edges so that where the 2 layouts meet, there isn't lines separating going vertical down the pages. That way it looks like it's all one layout. But I like sketches that give you some flexibility, and Dana's definitely does. It's really fun to play with this one. And you saw what I sort of did. So I didn't use the exact papers in the exact ways on each side, but I made sure that I had overlapping papers that brought the 2 pages together. So the larger square on this paper here is only found on that side of the layout, and then the skeleton paper on the other side is only found on the right hand side of the layout, but the other 2 papers are on both layouts, so that kind of brings them together. And here you can see how I just did those 3 sides, not the 4th side going down, so that it looks like the border is actually going around both sides of the layout, or both pages of the layout. But yes, I kind of decided that that would be a fun thing to do. If you look at Dana's sketch, you can see the different shades in her blocking, so you can kind of see where you might want to put the same pattern on both sides and where you could put something a little bit different. But this is a great layout for kind of exploring where to put some patterns and how to play with papers. All of my papers come from Simple Stories from this year's Halloween collection, and I just went with all of the oranges. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, when you're doing something monochromatic, black and white to me always is kind of like a freebie. They're 2 freebie colors, I guess you could say, because they're super neutral, and black and white just make the other colors you choose pop. So if you're looking to do something monochromatic, but you just need a little bit of that contrast, go for the black and whites. I think golds and silvers could also work that way, or you could do maybe craft. I don't necessarily love craft and orange together, but you could do craft or grays, beiges, off-whites, that kind of thing. But you can see here how black and white was already in some of those pages from Simple Stories, so it just made sense to kind of go with it. So there's no other colors here except the colors you see in the pictures. Everything else is orange, all the different shades that are in this collection. And so I followed her layout or her sketch almost to a T. I didn't cut the little kind of banner edge on my strips going vertically on the left-hand side page, but other than that, I left everything kind of exactly how she did it. My dimensions might be off just a little bit because I'm using different photos, like a different array of pictures than what she's using. But other than that, I went with her design. I just really like it. It's very clean, which I always struggle with. And you noticed I pulled out my paper trimmer, which I don't always do. My inclination would have been to maybe tear those strips or that kind of thing, but I cut everything because Dana's sketch is very nice and clean, and I wanted to make sure that I was honoring that. And left everything in those oranges. So orange definitely is the most prominent color here, as you can see. And now I'm going to go through all of the embellishments that I have with this collection. So I had those foam titles, I have the chipboard, and then I have these 3 little ephemera packs that they have. I think do they call them the little bits? There's like journal bits and ephemera bits, that kind of stuff. So I pulled out a bunch of orange and I made sure that everything I pulled out was either completely orange or only orange and black, with the exception of these little spiders. I thought that these spiders kind of worked in the same way that having maybe a darker enamel dot or sequin might work. Again, they have that kind of grounding effect to them and they draw your eye in. So I thought the spiders worked really well that way, but everything else is orange predominantly. So I found stickers on the 12 by 12 sticker sheet. I found words and phrases and some little round, they're almost like a little doily. And I found this pumpkin and a banner, just lots of fun stuff. There isn't any embellishment on Dana's sketch. So when it comes to embellishing, you could leave it very plain and clean, exactly like Dana has it. Or you could go ahead and do what I'm doing and just add those little pops. But I really figured for this particular challenge, I needed to highlight as much orange as possible. And also, I think for monochromatic, to really drive home that it is monochromatic, sometimes more is more, and this is probably a more is more kind of case. If you didn't have embellishments like this to go with your color theme, this is the perfect opportunity to take papers and fussy cut shapes out or use punches, or that's when you could maybe pull out a cut file that you have and use your Cricut or your Silhouette, something like that, and just use paper to do your embellishing. Even if it's simple hearts that you cut out, whatever the shape might be, it doesn't have to be complicated. You just want to use as much of the color that you've chosen, that monochromatic color. Use as much of it as you can. So now I'm adding sequins. Here are these gorgeous sequins that I'm using, all in those oranges from Spiegel Mom's Scraps. That finished it off for me, and here is a look at the final product. I really love how this turned out. Again, I love fall. I think orange is such a fun color, so this worked out great. I love my layout. I thank you guys so much for watching. Please check all the links down below to see how everybody else is using the color orange today in our hop. And that is it for me. So until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.
Bye.